Hey planner friends! Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be planning from the 6th to the 12th of February in my Hemlock Oak weekly planner. Let's get started! So the kit that I'm using this week is Treehouse Book Club from Plannerface, and this was the Cyber Monday mystery kit from last year. I do PR for Plannerface, so you can use my code in the description to save yourselves a little bit of money and also mention me for a freebie. As I mentioned last week, I'm using a Hemlock Oak 2023 weekly at the moment, so there's no pen base for this spread. I'm just getting straight into laying down the base, and I've decided to colour block this week, so I'm using this light blue colour from the kit in my sidebar. I'm also covering up the last week in the monthly calendar in the top left hand corner with my weekly focus box so that I can fit as much of this tall girl into my sidebar as possible. The mini calendar in the top left hand corner is a 6-week mini calendar, so at the moment the last week in it is completely in March, so I'm not too worried about covering it up. As I mentioned in the kind of footnotes that I added into my last plan with me, the columns in this planner are pretty much exactly 1.5 inches, so because I want a tiny little bit of white space between each day, I have cut like 1 millimeter off of all of the date covers and the glitter headers before I start laying them down. I was hoping that I would have to do a lot less trimming with this planner, but I'm still doing the same amount of trimming, just taking out less of the sticker each time. So now I have the date covers in and I have that tiny little millimetre of space between each date cover, and I'm adding in the glitter headers in exactly the same way. The date dots that I used were from my Plannerface Advent Countdown box, so I'm not sure they're available in her shop at the moment, but hopefully they will be. I've then added in a glitter header for each day of the week where I'm working, and then for the weekend I'm using one of the 15mm strips and just trimming it to fit over Saturday and Sunday and layering the weekend banner over the top. Next I've cut one of the 15mm strips of washi from the kit in half just to create a little bit of a divide between my vertical planning space and my reflection section along the bottom. And then I'm going to add in all of my decorative boxes for this week. So for these I have trimmed that little 1mm off the side so that I can have a little bit of white space between my columns. And then in most of them I've trimmed them vertically so that they fit within the space that I know I will have left once I've added in all of my plans for the week. As I did with my passion planner, I'm still kind of planning out how the week is going to look in iCal so that I have that up as a reference point on my Mac in front of me while I'm laying down my spreads. For this week I decided to do the double box on Wednesday and Thursday because I knew I wanted a box at the beginning of each of those days, and I never used to do a double box over Wednesday and Thursday in my passion planner because there would be such a big space between them with the timelines, but now that I'm in this planner and Wednesday and Thursday are a bit closer together, I think the double box across the middle of the page works. Another thing I tried out for this week was a divide between where my workday finishes and my evening begins, so I'm just using a Crayola Super Tip and 3 passion markers that match the colours of the kit to create these little dotty dividers between my workday and my evening. So that's my base laid down. Now I can zoom in a little bit and start on my plans for the week. So on Monday I was duty scientist. I'm using an event label and a Joy of Planning scientist girl to mark that in, and again with all of my stickers I am going to be trimming off 1 millimeter each time. It seems like such a small and insignificant amount, but it makes a difference to me in my head. As Monday is pink, all of my little background blobs are going to be using this pink Crayola Super Tip, and I'm layering over a Rebel Ink little Betty dog to mark out my checklist for the top 2 or 3 things that I get done at work that day. I'm then going to mark out a chunk of time for my checklist in the evening, but using a washing machine doodle, which I think is from a Plannerface multicolour doodle sheet because the one in the kit wouldn't match. And then we can move on to Tuesday, which is one of the busier days for the week. I'm going to mess around with the sizing a little bit here because I need to fit a work from home script over the glitter header and at the start of the day. But I'm first using a little fancy label with a monitor doodle from the kit to mark in that this is the day that we finally got our fibre internet installed, so we are not using BT hotspot anymore. I'm probably going to mess around with the sizing quite a lot in this plan with me just because I'm not used to this planner yet. This was actually the first spread that I laid down in this planner at all because it got delivered the day that I set this spread up. So now that I've finished messing around with that, I can move on to the rest of my plans for Tuesday. Next, I'm using a little thing and some deco from the kit to mark in a little quality meeting that I had this morning to go over an incident that I've been reviewing. So it's just a fun morning of moving from room to room away from where the internet engineers were working because they kept having to move rooms and I was always seeming to be in the way. Next on Tuesday I'm using a big fancy label with another bit of deco from the kit to mark in that I had my annual appraisal this day. It went really well because my new manager is lovely, but I haven't had an appraisal since 2021, so going through the paperwork was a bit of an ordeal. I'm also marking space for my work checklist using another Betty from Rebel Ink Co. and a blob of vintage moss passion marker. Now that is a tongue twister. I said vintage mosh so many times. Also on Tuesday I was planning on getting back to the gym, so I'm using a Pinky Stickers printable to mark that in. And then after work on Tuesday I'm using one of the squared off half boxes from the kit to mark in that we took Reggie to the vets for his monthly checkup. He was such a good boy, and also the vet was really surprised because he hasn't liked her very much the past couple times that we've been in, but this time he was letting her look at his teeth and also listen to his chest without growling at her really aggressively, so that was lovely. For my Tuesday evening checklist, I'm using the bucket and sponge doodle from the kit, and then we can move on to Wednesday, where I was duty scientist again, so I'm using another event label with another Joy of Planning scientist girl to mark that in. With this planner, although I am mostly sticking to the timelines, I am being a little bit less strict about them than I was in my passion planner, especially when it comes to work events, because I have a much more detailed plan of my work day in my work planner. All that is to say that I'm marking my seminar in slightly the wrong time, using a little thing and a notebook doodle from the kit. For my checklist on Wednesday, I'm using a vintage mauve passion marker to add in my colour for that day. And then I'm adding in a Pinky Stickers printable to mark in doing some yoga at home. For my evening checklist, I'm using a little bit of deco from the kit. I wish there was more of these purple vines as deco from this kit because they were really cute and they're not really in any of the other boxes that I've used this week. Moving over to the second half of the week, I'm starting by adding a work from home script on Thursday, and then I'm using a fancy label from the kit with half of a Once More With Love arguing munchkin to mark in our little team maths club. Also on Thursday, I was planning on doing my second weight session of the week. I did end up moving this to Friday though, because I ended up working from home on Friday as well, and then I'm using a blueberry passion marker as my colour for Thursday. For Thursday evening, I'm using a recycling icon from Plannerface to mark in my to-do list for the evening. So I'm trying to make each of the doodles that I pick for my to-do list kind of match with at least one of the tasks that's probably going to be on the to-do list, and on Thursday it was take the recycling out. And then on Thursday evening, I'm using a quarter box with the bathtub doodle and the self-care script from the kit to mark out a chunk of time for some self-care. So moving on to Friday, I'm marking in my checklist for work in exactly the same way that I have all the other work days this week, and then we also had another quality meeting, so I'm using another fancy label from the kit with the phone doodle also from the kit to mark that in. This kind of left a big space between the decorative box and the label that I've just added in on this day, so I kind of wish that I hadn't cut that box down quite as much as I did and just moved it up a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. For Friday evening, I'm just marking in my checklist in the same way that I've done each day, but with a spray bottle doodle from Plannerface. And then we can move on to Saturday, where I'm first using this label from the mystery add-on sheet with a Joy of Planning girl doing a presentation to mark in that today is International Women in Science Day. Oh, and because I get the pastel hair colour stick with the Planco girls, because you can't just get them in a whole sheet of blue anymore, I'm matching the hair colour to the colour blocking day that I'm on. Next I'm using a quarter box and some deco from the kit with an edit script from Plannerface to mark in editing and recording this voiceover. I did have to trim the legs off the stick with the Planco girl just so I had the right spacing between this and my edit and voiceover box, but considering it's such a big sticker, I think it works pretty well. Next I'm marking in team training, and I decided to lay 2 half boxes vertically and kind of layer them over each other, so they took up a big chunk of time because I have to drive to team training and then the training is 2.5 hours and then drive home again. It's about a 45-minute drive each way. So this takes up a big chunk of time, which is quite accurate to how much of my day is spent on team training, and then I'm just adding a Joy of Planning weightlifting girl to mark that in. After team training, I'll be doing my planning time, so I'm using a flag with a planning script and a planner doodle all from the kit to mark that in. And then for my Saturday afternoon checklist, I'm using this vegetable doodle from Plannerface because one of the tasks was meal planning for this day. Next I'm using a quarter box from the kit to mark in whatever we get up to on Saturday evening, and that is Saturday basically completely pre-planned. So we can move on to Sunday, where I'm first using the vacuum doodle from the kit as my checklist for this day. And then I'm using a little thing with a YouTube button icon from Ickle & Co and an upload script from Plannerface to mark in uploading this video. I can then use another Pinky Stickers printable to mark in my last weight session of the week, which is my accessory session, and I'm really not looking forward to that accessory session because there's a handstand hold in it that I really don't want to do. Oh, and then the final thing to mark in on Sunday evening is that my boyfriend is going over to his friend's house so that they can watch the Super Bowl because it starts at 1 AM our time. So that is all of my stickers down for the week. Now I can go back in and fill in all of my plans as usual using my Pilot Friction pen. So this week has been a little bit of a whirlwind, so much has happened, and I think I started the week on kind of cloud 9 after my weightlifting competition last Sunday because I came second in my class, so I actually got a medal, which I wasn't expecting. And I also smashed my previous competition total by adding 7 kilos to it for a total of 109. So yeah, I was super happy that I decided to go up a weight class because obviously having all that extra fuel and a little bit more weight on me is really helping with my lifts, especially getting some power into my clean and jerks, which I've really noticed the difference on. We then also had a really positive vet appointment for Reggie on Tuesday, so the vet's really happy with his progress, and we've actually decided to start trying to take his meds down a little bit because we are worried that he's a little bit wobbly on his feet, and it might be because he barely moved for like a month while he was trying to recover, but it also might be because he's just on so many painkillers that he's high all the time, so he's kind of struggling with stairs and stuff. I'm really hoping that this kind of long, slow recovery will mean that overall in the future it's much more manageable rather than the really quick, snappy recovery he had previously. And then towards the end of this week, I started getting this cold that you can probably hear in my voice, and because I had a cold, I have to get a PCR test for work, which is why I was working from home on Friday while I waited for the results. Which was pretty pointless because they were then like, oh, you could have a false positive because you'd had COVID at Christmas, so we can't trust the results anyway. And I was like, fab, why did I have to drive 45 minutes to go and get my PCR test done if we can't trust it? Definitely noticed that now everything's opened up again and I'm going back to like gigs and going out and like seeing people, that I'm getting more colds than I did for like 2 years, which is annoying, but also like what can you expect? Planner wise, I've really enjoyed using my Hemlock Oak this week and also kind of settling into it, doing a few other spreads. Like I've moved my February monthly into this planner and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm just going to keep playing around and seeing how it goes with changing into this different planner. My focus for this week was that I just wanted to make time for rest and recovery after my competition last week, and I definitely did that with my recovery training and also having that extra day of working from home. But that's everything for my pre-planning. Let's take a look at the finished spread. So here's the spread all filled out, and I really love how this has turned out. I love how colour blocking looks in this planner where I've got like proper solid chunks of each colour. I didn't have too many photos for this week, so I've added in an extra 1 or 2 from my competition on Sunday last week because I didn't get them until this week, so it still counts. Also, now that Reggie is feeling a little bit better, he's playing with squeaky toys again, and it only took him a day to break this squeaker. So that's everything for this video, friends. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye!